The time is 6:30. This is On the Hour.
Such is politics.
On the Hour.
It's a painful business.
On the Hour.
What you mustn't do with politics is listen to people.
On the Hour on Radio 4.
Such is politics. It's a painful business.
Radio 4.
A child came to me with a packet of lentils.
And I'm just looking at it very dispassionately.
Well, the Germans have always been unenthusiastic about parallel currencies.
On the Hour with Christopher Morris.
Good morning. The main stories tonight.
The headlines.
More oxygen needed, says France. William Waldegrave in turmoil. And Anorak Tuesday is under threat, says Primate.
On the Hour.
Plus, why the piano world has gone ape over Godfrey the chimpanzee.
I haven't seen anything like it. We just sat him on the stool and he started playing.
And speaking from the House of Commons ping-pong chamber, the Prime Minister expresses his outrage at the decision by the Rugby Football Union to abolish prop forwards.
That is also Michael's position, it is Douglas's position, it is my position. It is a position held by every member of the Cabinet.
But first, the news. British Rail have today blamed the wind for the recent outbreak of train cancellations. It's the wrong type of wind, said a small official. Our rolling stock is well-proofed against a steady 70-mile-an-hour easterly, but swirly northern gusts are extremely tricky. Sleeper scientists and freeze boffins say the old method of making the trains lean into the wind just doesn't work with the new sort of erratic flurrying squall. British Rail say they are working round the clock to come up with a solution, and so far a combination of deflector plates and draft-resistant spray is the most likely to succeed.
Abroad.
Albania, and further steps towards democracy in Europe's last hardline state were announced today as the government conceded to popular demands voiced by rebel meatpackers leader Janislav Kutnant. Amongst the reforms rushed through a hastily convened meeting of the country's extraordinary plectrum are an end to the crippling potato tariffs, the granting of new assembly rights making it legal for the first time for people to assemble in their living rooms, and a relaxation of the curfew on laughing.
The pound.
Sterling today, 7, 2, 50 and 5.
On the Hour with Christopher Morris and other reporter presenters.
It's 27 minutes to, and time to go over to the Green Desk for some environmental news.
On the Hour, Green Desk.
Green News update from me, Rosie May. Look out on your supermarket shelves for a new washing powder. Simply called Yes, it claims to be completely free of bleach, optical brighteners, phosphates, detergent and soap. Also in a lather this week was Friends of the Earth, protesting at the launch of new Bastard Automatic, which claims to consist entirely of harmful ingredients and hence to get dirt off clothes very well.
Environmental news. If it's green, we'll cover it.
And there'll be more later from the Green Gang, or as I call them, the Gang Green.
Serious tone of voice.
Later, who pays for our cheese? But first, the unspeakably awful and filthy world of police corruption. A report from our reporter, Gavin Strength.
In a surprise development, it was announced this morning that the Special Investigations Unit of Greater Doncaster's Police Force was to be disbanded. The region's Chief Constable, Sir Michael Cog Lucifer, explained the move.
We investigated the West Dorset Flying Squad and we found out that they were completely innocent. Indeed, those who had given evidence against the Flying Squad, 350 members of the public, we then found were guilty.
And what evidence do you have against these 350 people?
None of them were churchgoers. We know that.
Does that mean that they're guilty, that they don't go to church?
No, but we have asked them whether they do go to church, and they have all claimed they do not. And I believe that is more than coincidence.
For one man in particular, the news that the unit is to be disbanded could spell the end of a 10-year nightmare. Lionel Cosgrave is a 23-year-old local pizza delivery man.
I've just grown to notice over the years, I seem to have spent rather a lot of time being arrested, interrogated, thrown in prison, and I don't know why.
Could you tell me what was your first arrest, Lionel?
I was charged with impersonating a Chelsea pensioner. Though I was in the area at the time of Chelsea, I can't do many impersonations. Well, I can do Michael Crawford.
Lionel Cosgrave, guilty Cosgrave, has been indeed arrested 46 times.
Could you tell me a little bit about your forensic scientist, Freddie Vincent?
Dr. Freddie Vincent.
I don't actually think he is a doctor.
No, he's not. But he calls himself one, and who are we to disillusion the lad? He's a young man. He's a God-fearing man. A man who, in his own words, cacks himself before the Lord. And I respect that and I admire it.
I talked to Dr. Vincent in his home laboratory. Bearing in mind the training that most forensic scientists have in this field, would you not say that you're a little bit young to be dealing with matters of this importance?
Well, that's not the first time that allegation, has been put to me, and I've got a reply for that every time, which is, how old was William Pitt the Younger?
Right, yes, but you're in fact 18, Freddie, the youngest forensic scientists ever to work for this special unit.
Yes, I've a lot of experience. I'm going to practice a lot with anyone who I think might be involved in some kind of corruption. I'll take swabs from them. I'll ask them first.
I've been arrested for charged with fitting up terrorist bombings, poisoning wells.
And what actual evidence do they use against you for these crimes?
Apparently they found my blood all over policemen's fists and boots, and apparently my fingerprints have been found all over my hands. I question this forensicness myself.
You can always sort of make something look like something else. If I take a football and paint it green, you might say, oh, it's a giant P, but, scrape away the paint and, underneath, oh dear me, it's a football.
And do you take all the information you've collated back down to the police office?
I try not to blind them with science, they've got enough on the plate.
Freddie Vincent, Dr. Vincent, presents the evidence to a committee, myself, and I decide who is to be tried.
And who else is on this committee?
I've just told you.
Just you?
Myself and my conscience.
There's a bloke called Lionel Cosgrove.
Well, yes, I was about to come on to Lionel Cosgrove.
Guilty Lionel.
Lionel Guilty Cosgrave.
Yeah.
Could you give me some proof that you actually found against Lionel? I mean, how do you know that Lionel was, in fact, a bomb maker?
Well, this is interesting. Ink was found on swabs taken from his fingers, and ink, believe it or not, is one of the most vital parts in making of bombs.
But ink can come from a number of things. I mean, what about pens, for instance?
I think we're splitting hairs at this point. I mean, what kind of pens?
There was an interrogation that took place. They made some tape that I haven't actually been able to hear.
Could you tell me what he is actually confessing to on this tape?
His guilt, of course.
To which crime in particular?
To his crimes in general. He is confessing to his guilty soul. It's quite clear, it's all on the tape. I mean, the tape cannot lie. The man is saying, I am guilty. I would regard that myself as an admission of guilt.
I am guilty. I have committed any of the crimes I'm accused of. I done it.
Come on, Cosgrave, you're guilty.
I'm not guilty.
Cosgrave.
I done any of that stuff.
Call you guilty.
I'm guilty, I tell you.
Corruption is like a plague, and if you don't lance it, like a boil, it can spread like some form of satanic cancer.
What do you mean by cancer? Some sort of illness?
A disease, certainly. Potentially.
In what form does this disease take?
Well, your hair falls out and your skin flakes off.
No, I'm talking about the actual corruption of the police.
Oh, sorry.
On the Hour takes the lid off the news and shows you what's in it.
It's very, very, very...
It's 16 minutes to, now the news. America and hysterical courtroom scenes in Alabama as disgraced televangelist Jim Tubbard was sentenced to a total of 120 years imprisonment and 7 hours community service to run concurrently. Tubbard pleaded guilty to 3 counts of heinous embezzlement, 5 counts of aggravated child murder, and 18 counts of very dishonest tax returns, but still maintained he was innocent because he had forgiven himself. Later, an ashen-faced Tubbard emerged from the courtroom to greet his followers with a confession to further charges of genocide, extortion, bad parking, and mass terrorism. Thousands of Tubbard supporters responded with cries of, "Never mind, Jim, have some more of our money."
At home.
Survey news, and cream is good for you if you're left-handed, according to a survey in this week's Which Survey magazine. The report says that apparently cream is good for you if you're left-handed.
On the Hour, health check.
What sort of disease did you catch recently?
Well, flu.
How do you feel about being one of the dim and feckless individuals who didn't avoid catching a disease?
Uncomfortable, bad. You feel rotten, and you must feel bad about it.
What sort of disease did you catch recently?
Flu.
What clearly rather hopeless measures did you take to stop yourself catching a disease?
I didn't take any measures at all.
Do you have any idea how you could avoid becoming, again, one of those bad idiots that goes around catching a disease?
No.
For better health, don't have a disease.
And now it's time for a video review, and our reviewer this week is Bob Tiff. Bob, have you found it an interesting selection this week?
Thank you, Chris. And 3 new films to tell you about this week, all of them specially rewritten and reshot for the video market. A case in point is Merchant Ivory's Room with a View 2, set like its predecessor in a Tuscan summer of long ago. Touching and sturdy performances by a stalwart team of British actors, including Denham Elliott, Judi Dench and Maggie Smith, are somewhat marred by the presence in the video version of a lethal swamp monster, who stalks the streets of Florence by night, devouring Anglican clergymen. Overall, a disappointment. But there is a convincing performance as Chagrin the cleric-slaying mud creature from Simon Callow. Missouri is the setting for Woody Allen's new offering, Vacation of the Heart, another dowdy production from the former comedian. 4 middle-aged New York sitcom producers meet up at a remote mountain ranch. Dave and Marty are both in love with Danny's wife Sue, while the 4th man, Melvin, has suddenly fallen in love with himself and has decided to make a film about it. Gradually, as the weekend progresses, Melvin and Dave discover more about themselves than Danny and Marty did of each other. Here's a clip.
Dave, I don't think I can write it.
Oh, for Christ's sake, what do you mean you can't write it?
I mean this joke. I can feel it, but I can't write it.
But comedy is about feeling.
Yeah, but where's the joke? Maybe I'm the joked. Or the joke. She's hacked my arm off.
Woody Allen and Michael Murphy there, with a brief appearance as the mutilated axe-wielding corpse of a long-dead Nazi by Mia Farrow. Of course, Vacation of the Heart. And finally we go to the bottom of the pile, in every sense. From TriStar Videos comes Revenge of the Stinking Dead. The title, sleeve notes, and indeed still photographs on the cover promise much entertaining spilling of gore and severing of limbs. But sadly, all this is lacking in the film itself. Director Bill Goering misses several opportunities to spatter the old red stuff, and instead shamelessly concentrates on the slight tale of a young Russian peasant boy struggling to nurture his gift for the viola, while managing the demands of his dead father's farm. What should have been an enjoyable 90 minutes of nubile high school flesh meeting a frenzy of blood-caked blades becomes instead an exploitational and complex parable of the conflicting demands of agrarianism and artistry. I voted a miss.
On the Hour, it's a magazine programme with a very broad brief.
And to illustrate just how broad that brief is, don't forget there's the On the Hour colour supplement coming up later. But first...
What's the time?
It's 23 7 to half. Time for Green Desk. Right then, perhaps if we could go to the...
On the Hour, Green Desk.
Events diary for this week. On Monday, there's a bat workshop and optional roost visit in Marlow. Meet at 7 p.m. by the pond. Hunt saboteurs this week, meeting at Letchworth on Tuesday, Epping on Thursday, and New Milton on Friday. So if you fancy going hunting in the next 7 days, avoid these places and you should get a free run.
Green Desk.
Those of you who remember happier days in younger years spent on the hippie trail need look no further than the On Earth Bookstore's do-it-yourself Third World Discovery Travel Kit. The kit comes complete with lice, bed bugs, the spores of an unspecified sexual disease, blood and sweat-stained underwear, a batch of addresses of Turkish people you will never write to, a gripper hand with which to fondle your own breasts or buttocks, and a wad of foul-tasting, unpalatable and largely psycho-inactive leaves of the Indian beetle tree. A must at $15.99.
Rosie May getting to grips with issues green. A sort of green gauge, if you like.
News update.
The French are still claiming more oxygen is needed.
At home.
A Safeway's bag stuffed with over 200 kilos of pure cocaine was handed into a Humberside police station last night by Redcar beachcomber Alec French. Police said this morning that the cocaine had an estimated street value of £33,000 million. I'm staggered, said Mr. French. It's been in the family for years, and no one ever thought it would fetch sixpence.
Travel update.
The M25 is reported missing today. The controversial road system, famed for its long delays and traffic congestion, vanished earlier this morning. Police say this is the latest in a spate of serious road thefts, and have issued a description of a man seen by local residents yesterday scraping the surface of the road with a spoon. And now over to Brian Bancroft in the test drive studio to find out which car he's been test driving this week.
I've been driving in my car. Baby, you can drive my car. Cars are cars all over the world.
Well, Chris, this week I've been test driving the new Vauxhall Nova.
I've been driving in my car. Baby, you can drive my car. Cars are cars all over the world.
And we'll be joining Brian next week as we join him again to find out what car he's been test driving on that occasion. And now back to today's main story. There's been a large disaster at Big Street Station. Details are sketchy, but it seems that a train ran into the buffers at 8:13 this morning during a rush hour crowded with commuters. And Transport Police have just issued this description of what happened.
Can you repeat that, please? In collision event occurred when the VPU, Vehicular Power Unit, proposed an IAV, inappropriate arrival velocity, to the IAHTS, impact absorbing hydraulic trumpet system. Was it lodged? Thank you.
On the hour, first on the scene at major disasters.
Our disaster correspondent Roger Blatt is on the scene at the moment. Roger, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at some large bits of twisted metal which just an hour ago was a train with people on it, none of whom had ordered the morning menu of mayhem they were about to be served. An hors d'oeuvre of loud bangs, a shriek of tortured metal with a side order of shattering panel, and for dessert, great cries of dismay and concern expressed by the victims. Could you be quiet, please?
Roger Blatt reporting. Now, as a result of the crash, Radio 1 are running a Disaster Day special. Let's join them now for an update. And it's Wayne Carr, I believe. Hello, Wayne.
The loudest bangs from the biggest disasters.
Hello?
Okay, Wayne Carr, WC on the radio, with a full Rockorama news banana to follow on that train trash trage. Gotta say, sounds like a bit of a nightmare there on Big Street today. Just a bit of a joke there to cheer you on if you had a death in the family, or just lost someone that you love in the amazing Bogey Bash. No, that can be tough. And don't forget, we're going live for a simulcast with the Corduroy Boys on Radio 4 in next to no time, okay? Really looking forward to that. Could be my lucky day. If I play my cards right, I could land the guest presentation spot on a lightweight news-based quiz program. Meanwhile, we're going all the way back with the music, and I see Dave Edmonds is still crawling from the wreckage.
Hello.
On the hour, disaster news update on the serious crash at Big Street Station.
Reporters looking for an eyewitness have found a single man in his mid-20s with an off-the-peg suit and a dull but adequate career in computers.
Well, the first I knew, there was a huge bang and glass flying everywhere. I couldn't believe it. Just like they said it would be in the advert. Look, page 38, Eyewitness Monthly. I've only had this copy a fortnight. Great value, isn't it? Am I on the 9 o'clock? This is telly, isn't it?
On the hour, catastrophe special, reactions.
And British Rail say they will launch an immediate investigation into the crash to decide they have nothing at all to do with trains, and anyway they're underfunded. And if you're driving in the Big Street area, expect delays from the build-up of heavy traffic as front-bench politicians and current by-election candidates converge on the station and then tear off to nearby hospitals in an effort to appear on the same news bulletin twice. And we go back to the scene now with Roger Blatt.
And as you join me, some of the victims are being dragged out.
And one more time, please, lad.
It's for a second time, actually. There wasn't enough light for the cameras on the first take.
Could you sob a bit louder, please? More sobbing.
I'm afraid what you're hearing is typical of modern television journalism.
Wave your stumps and action.
What they're doing is simply obstructing me from asking valuable questions.
Don't die yet, please.
The listener wants to hear.
Amateurs, don't die.
Excuse me. You're critically injured with a shattered pelvis, pneumothorax, and partially torn off face. How do you feel?
On the hour, Disaster Plus.
Just coming up to 4:20, and Weekend PM Special tonight comes live from the besieged home of a maintenance man who will be speculatively blamed in a few hours' time, reduced to a gibbering wreck by 6 months of press harassment, and found extremely responsible for everything in about a year from now, so that everyone else can carry on as if nothing had happened.
Why does news happen? We tell you on the hour.
My mind is entirely open on that.
And now it's time for Bill with some sports news.
We haven't got it.
On the hour, health check.
How do you feel about the increasing incidence of horizontal disease?
Very, very sad indeed.
Do you sit down and wonder about it?
We do at times, and we talk about it.
Which angle of disease most worries you?
180, I would say.
If you could see 180-degree disease coming straight towards you, how would you feel deep down?
Terrified.
Which is worse, a horizontal disease or a vertical disease?
Horizontal, I should think.
Why?
Definitely, because with a vertical, which is where you're going to be here, I would find a wall or a thing like that, and I would just stand there and hold it.
How do you feel about the recent outbreak of horizontal diseases?
Well, I think it's inevitable with the pressures we live under today.
Do you feel information is being suppressed at all?
Yes.
Who by?
The same people who suppress all other information in this country. This is the most suppressed country on earth.
How would you respond if you were confronted in a fisticuff situation with a horizontal disease?
Well, because of my past, I would learn to accept it philosophically.
You'd work it out in Nietzschean terms, perhaps?
Oh, yeah.
Of all the angles of disease in the world, which do you fear the most?
180.
What about a 35-degree disease? How frightened do you feel of that?
Acceptable. Acceptable.
78 degrees?
Time you did something about it.
And by the time you get to 360 degrees?
Well, you're going back where you started.
For better health, don't eat bits of ground.
News now.
News update.
The Conservative Party's central office has once again flatly refused to speculate over the date of the next general election. However, they did agree to leave a series of cryptic clues at undisclosed locations around the country.
Gynecology.
The sperm count today, low, southerly, increasing 5 to 7, moderate. Good. It's 14 minutes 2 and 20. Time now for the On the Hour colour supplement.
On the Hour, the colour supplement.
Picture Parade. Amusing captions to photographs of rich and famous people taken late at night when they're a bit tired.
Debbie Gibson likes potatoes. Perhaps that's why she's wearing a sack of them.
Samantha Fox declares, I'm as clever as the next man. It's a pity the next man is Jim Davidson.
Is that an extra pair of arms, or are you just pleased to see me, chuckles Dr. Runcie. Luckily, Nigel Kennedy can see the funny side.
Do you come here often, asks TV jester Beadle. I did, Jeremy, but I won't anymore, replies bouncy Benazir Bhutto.
A Room of My Own. Michael Hammond is serving 15 years in Wormwood Scrubs for having an Irish grandmother. He lives in a room as compact as it is subtly lit.
I think of this room as being very much my room, even though it's Barry's room as well, and Keith's, and Tim's, and Neil's. And usually we have Graham, the serial killer, in here as well, but he's in solitary at the moment for killing David, and Peter, and Stephen. Well, they call it solitary, but there's 8 of them in there.
On the wall by the coyly petite window, an arresting mural of startling photographic images meets the eye.
Yeah, Barry cuts them out of his magazines. I used to have a postcard of Chartres Cathedral up there, but Barry took it down. He said there wasn't enough totty in it.
On the Victorian table stands Michael's kettle. Modernist in design, it is a stark chrome challenge to the past.
There's a stark chrome challenge to making tea as well. Hasn't been the same since Graham the serial killer hit George, Charlie, Terry, Mick, Keith, but Bill, Ron, Brian and Rog over the head with it. They haven't been the same since either, come to think of it.
Michael's room of his own is an affirmation of Le Corbusier's ideal of a machine for living. It is at once functional, efficient and brutalist.
Where's my slot bucket? That's pretty brutalist. Just look at that.
And next week, In My Pants Drawer, when award-winning playwright David Mamet analyses his underwear and explains why his brown and blue striped M&S Y-fronts have a special place in his heart.
Advertisement feature.
The Book of Old Rope by Umberto Eco. Eagles Over Berlin by Jack Hawkins. The Shell Book of Eco-Warfare. All these top bestsellers could be yours when you join the Classic Heritage Book Club. The above 3 books count as one choice. Or why not order Dr. Alan Frottager's classic Have Sex All the Time or just look at the rude drawings. Warning, sexually explicit. Laugh and the world laughs with you when you order Frank Muir's book of other people's jokes. Counts as 3 choices.
And now, Cartoon Frolics with Peanuts, featuring good old Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown?
Yes, Linus?
Growing up is like a visit to the dentist. The pain of anticipation is naught compared to the agony of actuality.
Yeah, but there's no anesthetic for life.
This Peanuts cartoon is now available in the 517th Charles M. Schulz compilation, You're Not Funny Anymore, Charlie Brown.
The Colour Supplement Celebrity Questionnaire. What is your name?
Keith Floyd, chef from Bon Vivant.
What is the ugliest word in the English language?
Oh, tennis, definitely. It's so cold and harsh.
What is your favourite letter in the Greek alphabet?
Oh, God, I love them all. Apart from pi. I suppose the best would have to be lambda. Oh, God knows I couldn't tell you why.
What is your favourite crop parasite?
The sarcoptic mange, mate.
Which 13th century English bishop do you most admire?
Robert Grosseteste, Bishop of Lincoln.
And do you think anyone listening is seriously interested in any of your opinions about anything?
Good Lord. Tough one.
Advertisement featured. A marvellous collection of glass statuettes of British Prime Ministers. James Callaghan pictured here actual size. This limited edition of 150,000 statuettes was executed in individual lucite molds. Order the first 5 statuettes now and receive absolutely free this beautiful porcelain Sir Alec Douglas Hume skull ashtray.
Why does news happen? We tell you on the hour.
My mind is entirely open on that.
Media news now, and a note from the post office. Birthdays this week. Don't forget the final posting day is Wednesday.
On the hour, health check.
And if you're still worried about catching a disease, then we can provide a special prophylactic pack. Why not drop us a line and ask for the Don't Catch a Disease face suit. Filters out plagues and illnesses before they can get through your face. Special triple-wadded filters clamp tightly over vulnerable intakes like the nose and mouth. Dense swathes of gauze and muslin swaddle your frontispiece, and the head jacket is secured with staples to the ears, nasal septum and eyelids. A disinfectant reservoir ensures that every 5 minutes the facial cloak is perfused with 7 litres of strong sterilizing fluid. With a choice of 3 tweed coverings, the face suit makes an attractive fashion accessory for cultural evenings or top-level international peace treaty summits. And you'll be setting a good example too. A large head placard proclaims, "I'm wearing a special germ-excluding face suit so I don't catch a disease."
For better health, wash your hair, then go outside. Oh no, that's wrong.
And now we come to the section in the programme where we deal with our commentary insert. This week it's from Andrew Glover. Here he is on this piece of tape.
I couldn't help noticing in my local newsagents the number of magazines featuring interviews with rock stars. But take these magazines home, and you'll wish you'd spent your money on Angling Week, Be Your Own Hi-Fi, or Welks Today. Why? Pete Townsend of The Who makes it clear.
It was a story to start with. It was just a story on which around which I wrote some songs. And the story was a kind of an allegory. And
but maybe the causes of Mr. Townsend's linguistic difficulty are his primitive roots.
The baddies were people who did the entertainment,
But maybe I'm being too harsh. Mr. Townsend is a guitarist first and foremost. Maybe we should expect him to speak through his plectrum. Let's hold a lyricist up to the light and see whether he can speak English. Bernie Taupin, a man who has contributed nearly all the words to Elton John. Taupin extrudes coiled heaps of words which the listener not so much hears as treads in.
It's really a song that says there's something tomorrow. You know, it's a once upon a time song. It's a salute to the future. It's Elton and I doing John Wayne and walking into the sunset and saying, if there's something out there, we're going to find it.
Tell us, just how unique is this process, Bernie?
The process of doing it was very unique because I wrote the songs in the order that they were recorded. And
the resulting album?
It was an autobiographical look at our backgrounds and our raisings.
Probably most synonymous of this very unique raisings is Taupin's mixing of metaphors. In the early days, of course, Bernie had to mix his metaphors by hand. Today, they can be remixed digitally. So look out for Simon & Garfunkel's seminal metaphor from the 60s, newly extended and remixed as, like a bridge over oil on troubled waters still run deep mountain high. However, to my mind, it's still Bernie Taupin's work which sets the standard.
We were striving to find a goal, and in order to cut through and machete our way through that jungle, we thought it was lined, the streets of London were paved with gold, but unfortunately we found there were a lot of sharks in the doorway snapping at our heels.
Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones, how have you found audiences now you're back in the UK?
And Leicester was fabulous, the tour at Leicester. And it's nice playing in those smaller halls, 4,000s, 5,000s instead of those 85,000 stadiums in America,
Ah, yes, the trendiness of the small venue. To achieve a massive sell-out tour is to sell out massively. Far better to stay in fashionable obscurity.
For a new group to start out is almost impossible. What difficulties did you have? Well, for one, getting a place to play.
Yeah, no place would let us play. We had a gate crash.
And once you've forced your way into the studios and made a record, you then face the next problem. Is it trendy to go high up the charts?
But it's nicer if things do go higher up, but we sort of said to ourselves after it started to go down, maybe it was as well that it didn't go higher up, because if you looked at all the other rubbish that was higher up in the charts, if we were up there with them, then we'd maybe have to ask ourselves questions.
Like, who are you? Trendiest example of this yearning for obscurity is a Tyneside band so hip that they refuse to have a manager or a record deal, to play live, to have any instruments, or sing any songs. They are, in fact, the Gateshead and Dunstan Fire Safety Inspectorate. But of course, for a world-renowned musician such as Sting, fame has its own perks.
In fact, when I broke my fingers, my roadie came on and did the whole set.
Giving Sting time to talk about trees. For the fact is, one rendition of Dee-doo-doo-doo-dee-da-da-da on Jukebox Jury and your thoughts on the state of society achieve national importance.
Is it just the music scene that you're unhappy about, or is it the whole of England that you feel a bit bad about?
Well, the country's a bleeding right state, isn't it?
What are you trying to do about it?
Make it worse.
So finally, Sting. The question we've all been asking is, what does all this prove?
You don't have to be intelligent to be a rock and roller.
It does help, though.
Some of the most stupid people that have ever existed were really good at rock and roll.
Closing music.
And it's just time to look at the headlines in tomorrow's papers. The Times, more oxygen needed, say the French. There's a photo there of Mr. Mitterrand. The Telegraph going with Meat Man in commando-style soap attack. The Mail, lead on Dead Rhino blows through Glasgow. The Star, slow-motion stuntman in leg fury. And Alleluia Man in Songfest barge torment is the Express. That's it. Just makes me to say night and see. Right. And that's what was on the hour tonight. Reporters Patrick Marber, Doon McGeehan, Andrew Glover, David Schneider and Steve Coogan. On the hour was research by Dylan Winter and Stuart Lee. 29 and 30 were Richard Herring and David Quantick, and studio files were set up by Stephen Wells. The program editor is Armando Iannucci.